Good morning, Doc. Good morning, classmates. So I'm going to discuss the part 4 for the Unit 2 and Production Systems. Capacity. The capacity is defined as the ability to achieve, store, or produce. For an organization, capacity would be the ability of a given system to produce output within specific time period. In operations, management capacity is referred as an amount of the input resources available to produce relative output over a period of time. Capacity planning in operations management is the process of balancing demand for a good or service with the ability of a manufacturer or organization to produce enough to meet the demand. Planning for supply and demand effectively is the basis of effective operational management and can increase delivery capacity, bring to light inefficiencies, and mitigate the risk. Ultimately, understanding and effectively managing capacity can mean the difference between a profitable business and one that is out of business. In manufacturing, capacity planning in operations management involves understanding how many times can be produced in a given period based on materials and equipment available. So for example, a bakery, understanding of how many pies can be made and baked in a given day using the existing equipment and the staff or the capacity and allows the bakery to plan for how many pies they can sell and what they need for the resources. For project-based organizations that do not have equipment, that just people. So the capacity planning involves the understanding of the scope and timing of all the current and planned work and the availability and skill sets of the people who will do the work. Next is the capacity planning classification. Capacity planning, based on the timeline, is classified into three main categories of long range, medium range, and short range. Number one, the long-term capacity. Long-range capacity of an organization is dependent on various other capacities like design capacity, production capacity, sustainable capacity, and effective capacity. First, the design capacity. Design capacity is the maximum output possible as indicated by equipment manufacturer under ideal working condition. Second, production capacity. It is the maximum output possible from equipment under normal working condition or day. Third, sustainable capacity. Sustainable capacity is the maximum production level achievable in realistic work condition and considering normal machine breakdown, maintenance, and etc. Fourth, effective capacity. Effective capacity is the optimum production level under predefined job and work schedules, normal machine breakdown, maintenance, and etc. Number two, medium-term capacity. The strategic capacity planning undertaken by an organization for about 2 to 3 years of a time frame is referred to as the medium-term capacity planning. Then number three, short-term capacity. The short-term capacity is the strategic planning undertaken by an organization for a daily, weekly, or quarterly time frame is referred to as the short-term capacity planning. So the goal of the capacity planning. The goal of capacity planning in operations management is better and more efficient operations. And also, the goal of capacity planning is to meet the current and future level of the requirement at a minimal wastage.
Capacity management. Capacity is the maximum rate of output of a process or system. Capacity is in our daily life. How many people should a concert hall have? How many people should a restaurant be able to serve? How many batteries should a plant be able to produce? Design capacity. Theoretical maximum output in a given period under ideal conditions. Project engineer designed machine to run at 200 parts per minute. Effective capacity. Output expected by the company under current operations constraints. For example, different product mix as was initially designed, some capacity cushions. Capacity available is affected by work content change, product mix change, equipment change, speed or pace at which the work is done. Measure. Utilization equals real production over design capacity. Efficiency equals real production over effective capacity. Efficiency is the main driver for the operations director. Number of capacity and strategy. 1. Add capacity to go-ahead demand. This is an expansionist strategy. This can result in economics of scale. 2. Wait and see. This is a conservative strategy. It follows demand and expands in smaller increments. Some risk is what we perhaps can be unable to respond to high demand. Management should choose between these two strategies or another in between. According to the horizon, we can talk about short-term capacity, 0 to 3 months. Our main drivers for capacity management are planning jobs, planning people, schedule machines. Medium-term capacity, 3 to 12 months. Our main drivers are subcontract operations, add manpower, increase or use stocks, add shifts, add equipment. Long-term capacity planning, 1 to 5 years. Our main drivers have added installations, add equipment with long installation lead time. Of course, in short-term capacity planning, you can also add overtime work.
Next is the material requirements planning. So the material requirements planning is a software-based integrated inventory and supply management system designed for businesses. It is a system for calculating the materials and components needed to manufacture a product. It consists of three primary steps. First, taking inventory of the materials and components on hand. Second, identifying which additional ones are needed. And then, scheduling their production or purchase. Companies use the material requirements planning to estimate the quantities of raw materials, maintain inventory levels, and schedule production and deliveries. Next, why is material requirements planning important? So the MRP, which is done primarily through specialized software, helps ensure that the right inventory is available for the production process exactly when it is needed and at the lowest possible cost. As such, material requirements planning involves the efficiency, flexibility, and profitability of manufacturing operations. It can make factory workers more productive, improve the product quality, and minimize material and labor costs. Material requirements planning also help manufacturers respond more quickly to increase the demand for their products and avoid production delays and inventory stockouts that can result in lost customers, which in turn contributes to the revenue growth and stability. So next, The material requirements planning in manufacturing. Manufacturers manage the types and quantities of materials they purchase strategically and cost effectively to ensure that they can meet current and future customer demand. The material requirements planning helps the companies maintain the appropriate levels of inventory so that the manufacturers can better align their production with the rising and falling demand. Next, the advantages and disadvantages of material requirements planning. The primary objective of the material requirements planning is to make sure that materials and components are available when needed in the production process and that manufacturing takes place on schedule. The advantages of the material requirements planning are: first, it reduces the customer lead times to improve customer satisfaction. Next, effective inventory management and optimization. By acquiring or manufacturing the optimal amount and type of inventory, companies can minimize the risk of stockouts and their negative impact on customer satisfaction, sales, and revenue without spending more than the necessary on inventory. Next, it improves the manufacturing efficiency by using accurate production planning and scheduling to optimize the use of labor and equipment. And lastly, it improves the labor productivity and more competitive product pricing. For the disadvantages of the MRP, so the material requirements planning has drawbacks, including: first, increased inventory costs. While the MRP is designed to ensure the adequate inventory levels at the required times, companies can be tempted to hold more inventory than is necessary, thereby driving up the inventory cost. Second is the lack of flexibility. Material requirements planning is also somewhat rigid and simplistic in how it accounts for lead times or details that affects the master production schedule, such as the efficiency of the factory workers or issues that can delay the delivery of the materials. Third, the data integrity requirements. So the material requirements planning is highly dependent on having the accurate information about key inputs, especially on demand, inventory, and the production. If one or two inputs are inaccurate, errors can be magnified at the later stages.
If you're carrying more raw materials than needed to meet demand for your product, you're tying up cash that could be utilized in other areas of your business. On the other hand, a deficiency of raw materials could cause stockouts, preventing you from fulfilling customer orders and ultimately resulting in lost sales and canceled contracts. Material Requirements Planning, or MRP, is a supply planning method that helps balance supply and demand and more efficiently track inventory, schedule production, and ultimately deliver the right product on time at optimal cost. MRP pairs demand with the product's bill of materials to determine the necessary type and quantity of raw materials, components, and subassemblies, as well as the time frame in which those assets are needed. With full visibility into materials on hand, you can automate and optimize production, which allows you to better evaluate inventory levels, minimize carrying costs, and thus maximize profits while driving customer satisfaction.
For the summary, capacity planning in operations management is the process of balancing demand for a good or service with the ability of the organization to produce enough to meet the demand. The goal of the capacity planning in operations management is better and more efficient operations. Material requirements planning is a software based integrated inventory and supply management system designed for businesses. Companies use material requirements planning to estimate quantities of the raw materials, maintain inventory levels, and schedule production and the deliveries.